Welcome to Free Advice Friday. My name is Keri Barnum for New Shelves Books, and we are here to talk about the business of being an author, marketing, publishing, and all the things in between. You're welcome to join us live any Friday by going to newshelves.com/AF, or you can always watch the replays over on YouTube. You can join our YouTube channel, which is New Shelves Books. Not only do we have Free Advice Friday replays, we also do tutorials and publishing updates over there. So please go join us over there. For today, we're going to get started with just some industry news, things that have been going on, and questions from our live group here. So a couple of things that I've been seeing as far as what's going on in the industry. It will surprise no one that we're still seeing a lot of things with AI. I feel like last year we had this big hub of a lot of things going on with AI. And then kind of over the holidays, I feel like some of that news or people talking about it died off. And I feel like it's back in full force now. Only now it's not so much a question of, although it's still tied up in the courts for copyright, it's still tied up in the courts for, how people should be paid, if they should be paid, and all sorts of things like that. So that's still in the courts and will be for some time. But I feel like while that's still ongoing in the background, what we're starting to see more and more is how we should use it, if we can use it, all of those different things. I think it's now more the ethical question of how and if we use it versus the progress side of things where people are using it. They are getting faster. Some are using it well, some not so well. And so there's always that big question there. And we're seeing that more and more in the news. There's actually, I was reading something this week talking about how the Washington Post, I believe it is going to be working on some AI. And it's more about AI kind of taking the average person and AI training them or working with them to write articles. So that will be very interesting. I'm not surprised by this. I actually had the opportunity to talk to someone who'd been with the Washington Post for a really long time, who was high up in one of their departments. I won't say which, but I got to talk to them, and they were essentially saying that they were already using AI in almost everything. They were using it for headlines. They were using it for so many different things and developing things. So as much as we're dealing with this and as much as this is coming into question in publishing, we're also seeing it in things like magazines and newspapers, especially those outlets where a lot of content is required often. Now, we saw this, I think we talked about it last week before, where the person who generated a summer reading list, and on that summer reading list, it was generated with AI, and on that reading list, 9 of the 15 books were bogus. That they weren't real authors, not real books. And so I think this is the balancing act that we're now in, not the copyright, which again, background, copyright, how people get paid, I think that's still going on, but more and more that people are using these tools, how are they going to use it in the future, and what policies are going to be put in place? And where does the line get drawn, and who does it get drawn by? Is it drawn by the people who consume it? Is it drawn by each company and they have to live with that? Those are just some really big questions that continue to come up and continue to be an issue. And I'm seeing it authors more, not so much with the publishing houses, although I have seen editors who are refusing to work with authors who say they've used AI. I've seen, disclosure statements for agents and with publishers. So they're starting to come up with some of that too. But I think for authors individually, it's more about what comfort level do you have and are you willing to use it or not? And so it's just fascinating. I won't even dig into every story and every article I've seen in the last week because it feels constant. It feels a little bit like the same story and 50 different times with like two details changed. And that's because we're just running into the same issues or the same questions again and again and again. And so I think that it is going to be, like I said, we had a period last year where it just felt like everything was talk about AI, and it was kind of like, all right, already. And I feel like we're getting to that point this year, but it's not going away, quite obviously. And it's something that's going to continue developing and building. And not only just generative AI, but AGI, which is, actually more of a thinking AI, I guess you would call it. And so it is craziness out there, I will say. It's very divisive also. It's a good way to start an argument or a conversation in a group of writers for sure, but we're seeing a lot of that happening. But I bring this up more because we're seeing more and more AI being developed into the platforms we use. Amazon has been working. You may have noticed Amazon's AI Rufus is something they've been working on. Rufus is truly terrible. It is like a helper tool. It's supposed to help you search and find what you're looking for. And right now, Rufus is pretty terrible. Like if you put a search in and say, I want to find a summer read, a beach summer read, it will spit out books from like 1999. It'll like give you like beach towels. It's all sorts of craziness. So it's still in development. But they are definitely starting to use it on Amazon. And what does that mean? Well, it means the way that metadata and searches on Amazon, they are changing, which means how people find our books is going to change over time. I think this is one of the things that, like it or not, whether you choose to use AI or not, this is one of the things we must understand is we must learn to understand how AI works in the sense of how it changes searches, how it changes your customers' experience, because that's what leads to your product. And Rufus being developed at Amazon is definitely, happening. They are using more and more AI tools in the background. I think I just read something this morning about how the New York Times actually may have licensed some content to Amazon for training. And so it's happening. And so this is one of those things that I just want to make sure that we are not left behind on. Whether or not you choose to use AI, we do need to know how it affects the searches and the platforms that we sell on. And we are seeing this on Amazon. I've had a lot of people recently talk about how weird things have been happening on Amazon or how searches aren't working the way they were. Their sales suddenly fell off. And I've also seen this over on Facebook where people are talking about, Facebook suddenly isn't showing stuff, or I had Facebook ads and they're suddenly not working. Both of these platforms, I believe, are currently integrating massive AI systems. And that is going to change a lot of things. It's going to interrupt algorithms. It's, the way that your book was set up before, the metadata, the things that were working for you before may not work anymore. It may change how your book is being searched. We may have to actually look at the keywords we're using. Are they currently the same keywords? Because I'll tell you what, that when we are looking at keywords that tie into written data, it's different than something when someone's talking to text, because we tend to be more informal when we're talking to text. And AI, a big part of it, it really does kind of have, it's meant to have more of a conversational feel. And so that's going to change some of our searches and things like that. Um, so if you have been feeling like some of your platforms are not delivering like they have been in the past, or that things are different, the truth is that's probably correct. I'm seeing it, people saying that their Facebook groups are not being seen, their ads are not delivering like they were, they're getting clicks and not, it's not delivering. Also know all of these platforms, like if you're using Facebook ads, they've been using AI for some time, but they've really started to integrate more and more AI into it. And that changes everything. And so not only do we have to learn how to work with it, but the algorithms have to adjust and then start working from there. It's almost like starting from scratch in some ways. So if you have been in that experience, don't be too, well, you can be frustrated, but don't be too upset. It's not just you. If you start to see certain things going on, it is our world changing. It is our world changing, and us, trying to ride out that storm and also adapt as it continues to change. So I think that's one of the things we should all be researching. It's certainly something that I keep an eye on, is how to continue to work with AI systems in place. So when there are AI models like Rufus on Amazon, how can we optimize our books to ensure that they're being found and searched on those platforms? We don't love them, but we still have to use them, and we want to make sure that our books are working that way. So I would encourage you to keep an eye on that. If you see articles, make sure that you're paying attention to them. I certainly will share things here, but we have to be aware that the systems in place are changing. And so we have to be aware of that so we're not left behind, or so that we're not, if we see problems, that we're proactive in updating our book metadata, our keywords, and different things to reflect the current standard of what they are using. Because I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's Amazon's playground. They can do what they want to. They will do what they want to, and we are just little people playing on it. So let's make sure we're staying on top of that. Let's see, Stella saying, I can start seeing a proliferation of apps that write the book for you, or co-write. But it looks like every day there is a new one. Absolutely. There are so many new apps, AI apps, AI programs. I had someone reach out to me the other day offering like AI marketing, and some AI marketing, like there are some tools that are pretty cool. Like I have one where it will create like a commercial and your characters can talk. Like if you have a character on your book cover, pretty cool. And then there are some where it's like, give us your whole manuscript and we'll give you this, this, and this. But then they're feeding your entire manuscript into AI. Certain people are more comfortable with that than others. There's a lot of tools. I mean, we're saying, and we have seen AI in a lot of our editing tools like AutoCrit and what are the other ones? I think Hemingway for a long time, AutoCrit, Pro Writing Aid has it. So we're really just seeing the adaptation into it in different ways. And there are so many new apps showing up because it's the boom. Everyone's trying to get their foot in the door and try to make money, a lot of startups and different things like that. So we will certainly see that a lot. And then the question, what's your take on all these apps? I find it weird that authors would want to be associated with this. I was having a conversation yesterday, actually, with that, and an author that I was on the phone with kind of put it like this. He said, I feel it's a little bit like having a ghostwriter. So, yes, there's a lot of apps that are like co-writers or like they're helping people write. And first, we have, of course, the question of how was it trained? Who is it modeling after? But there is actually an article that came out um, talking about an author who very publicly stated they used AI in a book. However, they used AI and in the prompt, they said, write in the tone of and listed themselves. And this person is prolific enough, well known enough that AI probably has used their books for training in the past. And so they said, write in the tone of myself, and write this. And they used it. They used AI to generate some text. They wrote some text, and then they used that as a framework to create their book. And they very publicly said this, and they said, I consider every word written as my own. It was trained on my work. It used my tone, my work. And there's a lot of pushback on that one, but it is a little bit, I guess, like having a ghostwriter, a AI ghostwriter. So again, these are just the things that are just tied up so much. I know that when I was at IBPA and there's that panel, really great panel talking about AI, and the CEO, I believe it was, of the Authors Guild was saying, we're not so much saying don't take deals from AI, it's get paid. I think that's the focus of most groups right now, of most authors and most groups, is if you're going to use our content, get us paid, get licensed, and all of those things. So I'm seeing that shift more and more. In the beginning, it was very much like, oh, don't let AI have your work. Just say no. And obviously that wasn't working. So I've seen a shift, especially in the last 6 months. I've seen a major shift of AI is terrible to stay away from it to AI is here. try to license your work and get paid for it rather than just having it stolen. And again, are authors going to use it? Probably. I mean, some of these things are integrated so slowly we don't even notice it. We don't notice in our editing app that it's there until we're using it and we're like, I don't use AI. And then someone's like, well, did you use this? Yes. Again, this is the difference between assistive and generative, but a lot of the assistive AI for editing tools are starting to incorporate generative pieces into them. So it's one of those things I think that will end up so casually becoming a part of writer's toolbox and process that I think it will be a slope. I don't think people will go from I won't use AI to using AI to co-write a book. I think it will be I don't use AI to I'm using editing tools that might have a little bit of AI to, oh, this was making a suggestion and I changed the wording to, a slope. And some people will always say no. And then there will be a slope of a lot of people who are like, oh, that works really well, or it was easy, whatever it is. And again, I think that is a ethical question that is far beyond this platform. I think it's very personal for people. I think we will see the difference between people writing for art, for literature, and people writing for, let's say, a newspaper who are constantly pumping out content. I think those people who we're seeing it over and over again. We're seeing magazines, we're seeing newspapers, their staff is being cut. It is just being so thinned out, and these people are still expected to churn out a lot of content. And I think those people are going to be some of the first to say, yes, if this thing can make my job easier and still get the job done, then I'm going to use it. And I think that we're going to definitely see more and more of that. And I think it's going to be that sector that will probably use a lot of those things first. But how will it end up? I don't know. We're watching it unfold, and I said, gosh, I said probably 18 months ago that I thought this would probably be about a 5-year cycle before we actually get there. And now that we're about a year and a half in, I'm still sticking to that. I think we still have another 2.5, 3 years. While things are growing and changing very quickly, I think we have another 2.5, 3 years until we actually get a lot of laws and things in place, and then we actually know what's going on and rediscover what the landscape is from there. And yes, as far as a lot of the programs, the editing tools and things that do use AI, I want to be very clear that many of them have privacy policies where they will not be using your work to train AI, or there's a feature where you can turn it on and off. So just because they use AI does not mean they're training on your works. That's very different. If it's a free tool, they're probably training on your works. If you have paid for it, many times there is a policy that they will not train on your works, or you can turn it on and off. So certainly there. Is there writing cover and sales blurbs is my nightmare. Is there an AI version that you'd recommend for blurb writing? Actually, many people have actually been using it for a long time. If you go to Kindlepreneur from Dave Chesson, if you go into um, their like formatting where you can format your copy for sales pages. There's a, hey, have AI take a crack at it tool right there that will change your sales copy. You can use ChatGPT for that. You can use what's the other one? Jasper, I think Gemini, almost all of them at this point. If you give them something and ask them to optimize it, almost all of them will do that. So which platforms you're comfortable with is up to you. This is though, cover and sales blurbs is where we are seeing publishing houses almost across the board using it. I'm seeing it at big publishers, mid-level small press. I'm seeing authors do this where they're taking their sales copy and running it through AI to optimize it, or giving a synopsis and asking for a marketing blurb back. We're definitely seeing a ton of this. Now it's only as good as the prompt, and also sometimes it just makes stuff up. You'll be like, Jack and Jill went up the hill, one fell down, write me a book description. And they're like, well, Jim and Rhonda did this. And you're like, okay, that's cool. Not my characters, not the same place. So sometimes AI will do crazy things. So again, remember it's the tool, but it's always the humans in the background creating and using that tool. But we are seeing it, as I said, in some of the bigger publishing houses are already have been. They have been some quietly, some not so quietly. Many of the large publishing houses, half of, I mean, there's only five, but at least half of them that I know of have already started to build their own AI internally for their own systems. Um, so they're absolutely using it. No, don't let it fool you. They're not only using it, many of them are building their own AI systems. Let's see. Mary's question, when you say license your work, do you mean copyright your work or do you mean something else? No, it's actually different. So the copyright of your work is the protection of your work. It's saying this is my work. And in the US anyway, your work is automatically it's copyrighted once you write it. But we also file with the Copyright Office. Why? Because then we have legal paperwork saying that was copyrighted as ours. Also, we do that because then if you do ever have to copyright or protect your copyright, if you have submitted within a certain time period, then your to my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, gotta say that. Then when you actually go, if you do have to sue anyone, anything like that, damages, what you can get back are more extensive if you have filed copyright because it's on file. So copyright is saying, I wrote this original work, I made this original painting, this photo, whatever it is. And that's your right. It is your right as the author. Now, what happens is if you have a publisher, let's say that you have a book and it gets sold to Random House. Well, you are essentially you're licensing the right to publish, print, distribute your book to Random House. So we often will say sell, it was sold, or, something like that when we talk to a publisher. But really, the licensing rights are what were sold, not the whole manuscript, because the copyright always remains, or should always remain with the author. In most standard contracts, it does. So that means that if I sell it to Random House has a licensing right, usually for 7 years. Sometimes it's longer, it just depends on what the agreement is, to publish that book. And at the end of that time, they'd have to renew or negotiations, or they would revert the rights and say, okay, we had it for 7 years, not really selling anymore. You can have the rights back. And then I could go and republish it. And that happens quite a bit. So you're licensing the rights. So when I say license the rights for AI training, it's the same thing, essentially saying, whatever AI company, whatever it is, I'm going to license the rights. So my book can be used in training and usage of your AI, but you're paying me a lump sum or a royalty for every time it's used, whatever it may be, for a specific amount of time, whether it be a year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. It can certainly be longer. Maybe it's indefinitely. That might be in a contract too, but the idea is that you're licensing your content, allowing them to use it for a specific purpose, and usually exclusively. So if I, for example, am licensing my book to a publisher, it's exclusive. They don't want anyone else publishing the book. Same thing with AI. Many times, with some of the coming deals that we're seeing, they want exclusive rights to that. So, they're going to pay you, let's just say $1,000 to be able to use your book to train their AI and affect outcomes of their AI for a certain amount of time. And I think where people much smarter than I are really working on is, how do we track that? How do we track when the system is using that book? How do we track how we get paid? Is it for a certain amount of time? Is it per input? If the licensing deal is for 3 years, then how do we ensure after 3 years that they're no longer using it if they don't pay another licensing fee? So these are new tools that we didn't need before. And so now not only are the contracts being developed, the deal standards of how much should you get paid, shouldn't you get paid, because then we have these tech companies and AI companies saying, well, if we have to pay, top dollar for all this information, it makes no sense for us because that would be too expensive. And then you have people, artists and writers and everything like that saying, well, that sucks for you, but I, took a lot of time for this. I want to get paid for my work. So it's a push and pull in those sectors, but it's also the checks, the balances, how much do people get paid? How do we ensure this happens? What way do we have of checking that? It is like a whole thing beyond just the ethical question of should we do it, the monetary question of should we get paid or not. It then goes so beyond that into the details of contracts and things that it again are well beyond my brain. But it is fascinating to see, we say, okay, licensing to AI, and it sounds such a short little sentence, but there is so much work in the background and um, really amazing collaboration between large groups like the Authors Guild and IBPA and different publishers and lawyers and all sorts of things that are going into the standard of what is acceptable for an artist to get paid, what is acceptable for timelines and usage and all of that. And so in some ways, it's really, I mean, it's creating the future of what we'll see happening in the future of publishing, yes, but also the future of creative things. I think this same thing is happening with music. It's happening with acting and artists in that way. It's happening with written works, with paintings, with photography, all of these things. It is kind of crazy because we have fair use, which is kind of anyone can use it if they give credit or they can use it in certain ways and not others. And then there is paid use. And a big part of the difference is how is the ultimate company profiting off of this? Um, and then meanwhile, in the same as we're having this, we then have people integrating AI into their businesses. So then a business is using AI to make money off of the AI that was created. And that company who created the AI is making the money. And then we have the businesses who are either paying or using the AI to make money. And where does it go? Who pays for what? Who has free reign? It's like a Gordian knot, I think. Um, and there's a lot of really smart people and passionate people trying to unwind that knot and figure it out. And I'm just the little fly on the wall trying to watch and figure out the three words I know along the way. So I'll continue to share with you as I see interesting things and learn more. But I just think that it's really fascinating. To see because I do subscribe. You guys know me. I'm a newsletter junkie and I subscribe to so many different things to see different perspectives daily, to see different groups working on different things. For one group to say, I think this is okay, and another group to say, I don't. And so much negotiation, collaboration, people who maybe disagree, who are still realizing they're working towards the overall same goal of getting artists paid, in defining those rules and those laws. It's well over my head, but still fascinating. So I will continue to share that with you as we go. In other news of publishing, we have reached officially, we've reached two things actually. We have the summer reading period where kids are almost out of school and they will have summer reading. We have summer reading list and beach reads because guess what? When the kids are out of school, teachers are out of school and people are reading on the beach a little bit more, poolside a little bit more. We are also reaching in publishing what's often known as like the dead zone of summer. So a lot of books actually do not publish traditional or larger houses tend to publish in the spring or in the fall. Very rarely do books get published in the summer or in the true winter. They get, kind of spring and fall. And so or summer is this period where we see fewer books come out from the mainstream, but we see so many opportunities for sales and for marketing. So I have been getting a lot of questions of how do I harness these summer readers? And a couple of things there. Number one, if you think your book is a great summer read, it's probably a little late to get that featured in a magazine, something like that. Usually those lists come out in like May. But what you can absolutely do, I've seen some really smart and cute ways to do this, but you can feature your book in ads, number one, about summer reading if you think truly. Now, let's be honest. Let's also be honest. Summer reads, if you have a light, easy read that can be read on vacation, if you have a quick read, something that really appeals to women in particular, are more likely to summer reads, or children. If you have a true summer reads, please use this in your marketing. However, if you have a historical tome that's 800 pages, that really is not like a quick, easy, I can read a chapter and then go jump in the pool and come back kind of book. Don't market your book as that. Let's be honest and make sure that we're actually, if you're going to use that hook in your marketing, make sure you're delivering on it. Your conversions will be better. And also, you'll have a better audience base for what you actually have. So, summer reads, you can absolutely do this by branding it in things like your social media posts and ads. I actually saw someone, I don't even remember who, but someone had created a summer reads list of their own. And it was the books that they kind of hoped to read this year. And then they added their book on at the end, which I thought was really clever because their book was kind of in the same genre of the list. So it was like, must reads this summer on my bookshelf for the summer, whatever it was. And it was, uh, you know, four titles from different authors, and the fifth title was theirs. And then they were running an ad with it, which I thought was really smart. Because then they were kind of number one, they were tying their name in their book to these other books that were their comps. So they're getting the attention of their ideal reader, let's say, with some of the other comps, but then they're sticking their book in there. And so I thought that was a very smart way to kind of use that summer reading branding authentically, but also to connect there for ads. You can certainly do the same thing for kids reads, like 5 books to get your kids off video games and into a book this summer, and you have the 5 books or the 10 books, whatever it is. Maybe you have a whole list. Maybe a group of authors get together and I do YA and you do middle grade and this person does, younger books. And so we're going to create a list and we're all going to share it, but we'll each have one or two of our books on there. That could be a really fun way to collaborate, but to kind of use that kind of access there. So I think there's a lot of ways to do that. Mostly, again, social media, blogs, and ads are going to be the ways that we mostly use that summer reading kind of vibe. Remember, summer is pretty much now till about mid-August. Mid-August is when people do their final vacations. They're getting ready for school in some parts, and different things like that. So it falls off then, and then we're all kind of by mid-August. Most people are like, okay, I'm kind of over that. Let's go more into sweaters and cozy things. Let's see, Chris's question. I created my manuscripts on Microsoft Word. Its AI Copilot constantly asks me if it can help me. Should I use a different platform to write as I feel Copilot is constantly looking over my shoulder? Chris, that is a great question, but guess what? AI is actually being featured in pretty much every common thing now. We're seeing it integrated into Google Pages. We are seeing it on Microsoft Word. It is just part of the future, I think. Now, some of these features can be turned off, so you might look into that. Some of them cannot be turned off, but you can ignore them. But this was actually yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the terms of use, but more and more, these things are just integrated into the platform. I personally won't be leaving word anytime soon, but some people will. But again, I've seen some people actually go back to a notebook and handwriting their books. If you have the time and the energy for that, I love that for you. If you can read your handwriting 2 days later, I love that even more, and I want to know your secret. I apparently was meant to be a doctor because my handwriting looks like chicken scratch that has to be, deciphered like I can't even say my words. I'll use a different word. Has to be deciphered later. Um, so I think it's up to you, but it's definitely been in there. Now, Copilot, I was able to turn it off a while ago, but as they are updating things, they may be turning off that capability. Sometimes I refuse updates just so I can keep old things that I'm comfortable with. So I don't know if you can currently turn off Copilot. You'd have to look into that. But it's a good question. It's just kind of in everything. More in marketing news. I was reading Jane Friedman, who we adore, you know this. Jane Friedman's newsletter this week, and that's the bottom line is her newsletter. And I'm one of her paid subscribers. And one of the things she covered was about an interview with marketing and PR talking about mid-list books. What is a mid-list book? When do we expect to see a success? And I thought it was really interesting because it covered a panel of people who are in the industry talking about mid-list books. And mid-list books aren't bad books. They are the descriptions that they used and Jane used was there's the debut authors. They are the new authors who are shiny and new and have full force of marketing a lot of times behind them if their book has a lot of popularity promise or if they have a platform the publisher's putting a lot behind them because they're testing out the waters to see if this book will take off. And you've got those debut, you've got the blockbusters, the people who make a lot of money with every release, who are getting film deals, and these people have a lot of marketing dollars behind them because they're paying for it. It's paying off in the marketing. Then you've got mid-list authors, and mid-list sometimes is considered um, it's like a dirty word, like it's almost insulting, but it's not. Mid-list authors are just those people in the middle of the list. They're not at the bottom, they're not the blockbuster hits, they're right in the middle, but these people are the ones who typically release really consistently, have consistent sales and consistent followings. Meaning they're great authors and they're selling books long term, but they're not necessarily popping off the charts all the time. And many of these authors will release a book. Most of them will release a book about once a year. And they just kind of keep going, but they tend to have very, very loyal readerships. People read that series until it's 20 books long, or whatever it may be. They're going to read every new release. But the conversation was kind of that Mythos authors have had the blessing and the curse of their publishing companies typically give them some marketing, but they don't do a whole ton. So these Mythos authors, in many ways, have had to learn to market themselves, to grow their audiences, to really connect. And these are the things that we talk about here on Free Advice Friday all the time. We talk about how powerful it is to own your audience, how it gives you more leverage in publishing when you've built an audience and you have an email list and things like that. And essentially, we're talking about it like there's this superpower here when you learn to market yourself that way. And if all authors did that, it would be a completely different game. But one of the things that I particularly love, because I've been saying this for a long time, um, one of the things that was said was that people think that they market their book at launch and then it hits or it doesn't. Like you got 3 to 6 months and you'll know whether or not it's going to be successful. And you market it then, and then you kind of just walk away. And one of the things that was said is that no, 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 you should be marketing that book launch, that book until your next book comes out, or at least for 18 months. And this made me gleeful because I have been saying this for a long time is that the first year is when you're establishing a book. I tend to see bestsellers on big list. I tend to see if it's not a breakout debut or a blockbuster, like a lot of books that are just solid from good authors, great authors who have solid followings. I tend to see the best sales in years 2 and 3. The problem is that not enough authors continue to market their book that long. And so it's like, to me, it's like running a marathon and you're at mile like 24 and you're like, yeah, no, I'm done. I'm not going to make it. So I'm just going to quit instead of finishing the race. And I see this so often. I was talking to an author early this week, essentially the same thing. Well, is the marketing even doing any good? I don't know if I should keep it up. I have a new book coming out soon anyway. I was like, if you have a new book coming out, you absolutely should keep your marketing up because you are going to maintain your marketing, your audience now. That will transfer over to the new book, which will help that one get off the ground quicker. It will actually make you more successful overall. And I love to see that we are taking the shift a little bit more and seeing that the mainstream advice is becoming the same, is that we don't just market a book for launch. Launch is the exciting time. Launch is that time we build up to. And then you know what happens so many times? It didn't sell as much as I thought it would. I didn't hit that list. I didn't do this. I guess it's just done. It's over. No, that's when you start your consistent marketing. You build your core audience, you get your email list, you connect with your audience, you do book clubs, you run ads. Ads are the way to sales. I cannot tell you how much I have to say. PR is beautiful. Getting awareness of your book is a great thing, especially in niche audiences. But ads are where we go to a reader and we ask for a sale. Ads are the backbone of book sales. And if you are not seeing sales for your book and you're not running ads, then you're doing yourself a great disservice. Now, if you can't afford them for some reason or another, I understand that. Start with small ads, start with low cost ads. This is why I love Facebook ads. You can run them for $1 or 2 a day. If you have ads that are not converting, if you have ads, number one, that aren't getting, uh, now, if they're not getting exposure, you're probably targeting the wrong audience, or maybe it's budget, something like that. But if you're getting a lot of exposure and no clicks on your ads, well, then there's a problem with your ad. Your ad itself could be your ad copy, could be your imagery. If you're advertising with your cover and it's not getting any interest, maybe you need to update your cover. But if you're not getting clicks, there's a problem with something in that ad. If you're getting clicks, getting people over to your sales page and they're not buying it from there, then you gotta look at your sales page. Is there anything you can do to update it? Is your sales copy? Is it your cover? Is it your price? And go from there. But I have to tell you, people come to me and say, and I've had multiple people come and say, I've got a five to $10,000 budget. I want to do a big PR campaign. I want to get featured here and there. And I will say, I love this for you. I think you should pitch these 3 big outlets with this really specific pitch and take the rest of your money and go run ads, because ads are, again, the backbone of sales. And it's one of those things that it's not exciting, it's not sexy, it's not just, I mean, I think it's fun because I really like ads. But for a lot of people, it's not fun, but it's what pushes book sales. It's what helps build audience. It's what will help you build an email list if you've got a really good lead magnet. So keep in mind that the long-term trajectory for career authors or authors who hope to have more than one book out, the launch is fun. The launch is fun, but it's a little bit like getting married. Like the wedding is fun. You plan for it, you have a big party, and then you actually have to live with that person and stay married for however long you choose to stay married for. But it takes showing up every day and putting in the work day after day after day. Well, after that big party, and that's how a book launch is. You have this big book launch, and then you kind of just want to be like, oh, it's over. I guess I'm done. It doesn't work that way. Keep on marketing, keep on showing up for yourself. Know that it does regularly take a year to 18 months to really build a solid platform for your sales in that second and third year. Some books will sell well beyond that third year. I mean, the average lifespan of a book is considered about 10 years for sale. So it could sell for 10 years. Some books obviously will sell longer, some will have new editions. But if a lifespan is 10 years, putting some marketing into the first year or two, I mean, that's literally like a fifth of its lifespan. So make sure that you're not giving up too soon, but also be smart, read the data, build your audience. And I think we've talked about too that if you are genre hopping, it will make it much harder for your sales. If you are writing a dentistry book and then you're writing a sci-fi book and then you're writing a children's picture book, it will be very hard to build your audience because you're like their friend with multiple personalities. They don't know which one they're going to get, and they don't know, maybe they connect with one or not the other. So we have to be very careful that if you just want to write what you want to write, great, go write what you want to write. But if you're going to publish it, you have to know that you are starting from scratch every time. And if your goal is simply just to get your book out because you love it, that works. But if your goal is to build a career, if you actually want a full-time, gig from writing, or if you want to really build a long-lasting audience to build a career as an author, then consistency is really key. Consistency in your genre and what you deliver. Even going from like super spicy romance to like Christian romance, it doesn't work because then your Christian romance readers are picking up this spicy book and they're horrified. And meanwhile, you've got, your spicy readers picking up the Christian book going, what happened? This isn't what I signed up for. So pen names are handy for that. I know we've talked about that before, but just know that if you've got three pen names, it means building three different audiences. Even if you kind of let them know that you write in different places, you are like the kid in high school who has different groups of friends and you have to nurture all of them, or else you won't be friends with that, a group anymore. So if you want to be paid like this is a business, you have got to treat it like a business. If it's a hobby, if it's a passion and you're just doing it because you love it, that's fair too. We all have hobbies. Some people ski and put a lot of money into skiing because they just love to ski. Some people paint and they do that and it's a hobby and that's great. But you don't go skiing 3 times a year on a weekend getaway and expect to be an Olympian. Same thing with writing. If you're doing it for passion and for a hobby, that's a beautiful thing. You can still do it well. You can get your book out there, but it's not going to pay you like a business. People tripping into success very rarely happens. Usually it's years and years in the making. It's intention, it's sacrifice. It's a business mindset well before they make it big and are making business kind of money. So keep that in mind. What do you want? What does success look like for you? There was actually an article in the Alliance of Independent Authors. I think it was this week that was talking about what success means for you, which I love because I don't know if I told you guys, but I just finished a book manuscript on indie publishing and just sent it off to the editor this week. So there's that. And one of the sections that I have in my book is about what success means for you. What does success look like for you? Is it holding a book in your hand? Is it retiring and being able to live off your income as an author? Is it hitting a list? Is it getting a movie deal? And there's no right and wrong. And maybe success looks like a number of different things. Maybe it's getting the book in your hand and then just getting your first review. And then maybe that definition of success grows over time. But the idea is that when you have your idea of success, that becomes your goal. And you have to take the steps to meet your goal. Hopes and dreams are not solid steps to getting a goal. So we have to make sure that we are building those things over time and that we are working towards our goal. And it's one thing to say, I want this, and it's another thing to work for it. And if we treat writing like a hobby, it's always going to pay us like a hobby. If we treat it like a business, It's not guaranteed it'll pay us like a business. Let's keep in mind businesses are hard work. You got to put in the time, and also not all businesses do really well. But we have the chance of it paying us like a business. We have a chance of making it a career. When I when I started with New Shelves, it was like a 10-hour a week side gig while I had little babies at home. But as it became my career, it was scary and it was a lot of work. And when I bought it from Amy, it was a lot of work and it was scary and I'm betting on myself. And if you nurture it and take it, it can become something really beautiful. And it did become something that is sustaining myself and my family. So takes the work just like a book does. And I think too often we think that people who make it big in books are just lucky. They just, they just got lucky. They just got the right agent. They didn't just anything. They put a lot of hard work into it. And very rarely do we hear stories where, someone stumbled upon something. It was weeks and months of putting themselves out there. They really created the opportunity for someone to stumble on them or to just get the right agent. So if you're feeling discouraged, ask yourself honestly, what are your goals? What's your definition of success? And are you putting in the work to get there? Because we can't really be mad if we're not putting in the work and we're not getting the results. So those are things to think about. Those are some hard truths, but I think it's really important because when we define what we're looking to get out of this business and what we're putting into it, it puts things into perspective. Sometimes it can be disheartening, but I think it can really be encouraging of have you reached your goal was just having readers. So I know we have an author on here who just really wanted to get to 10,000 books sold, and she did. And she's now surpassed and exceeded that. So it looks different for everybody, but what's your definition of success and what are you doing to get there? And are you celebrating every little milestone? Because you should, because you worked hard for it if you reached it. So I'll leave you with that for the weekend. Thank you for being here. If you haven't been over to YouTube recently, I did finally get up the video of Alan Gibson and I talking about marketing and media with man, we really dug deep into kind of traditional advertising and media, radio and TV, and how it works and doesn't work. That's now up on the YouTube channel. And then what will be upcoming on this week, I think it comes out on Tuesday, will be that long-awaited interview with Mike Steele on ACX, Audible, and narrating an audiobook. So that one will be up this week as well. So if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go join. It's New Shelves Books. And I will see you back here next weekend, same time, same place, 10 a.m. Eastern. Thanks everybody for being here, and I will see you next weekend. Bye.